You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.
Hello, hello, hello out there in podcast and YouTube land. You have reached Johnny Has the Keys, where we talk about horror movies and science fiction films and those key elements that either lift them or maybe actually go a little bit under the average genre fare. If you are joining us for the first time today, we would like to welcome you. We have our own little eensy bincy teeny weeny weird peculiarness that we like to discuss, and a lot of people are latching onto us, and we appreciate it, and we would like to welcome you. For those of you coming back, well, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and that I often struggle with coming up for a good adjective with a good adjective. I am here with my podcast host, co-host, and friend David Horton, who is laughing at me.
Yes.
Hello, David. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I love the opening. It's so crafted.
Suspenseful.
Suspenseful. Love it. Yes, we are glad everybody's here, and I'm glad to be back here. It's been a week, so we're back, which is good. What did I do in my off time? I struggle because
I can have a lot. Talk about mine if you would rather.
What did you do for your
about that? I think I mentioned last week that I've been on a bit of a YA kick because we kind of started with the Hunger Games.
Yep.
And then I went over into the horror world and started watching a few, and I watched Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I talked about that last week. And then I dove into 3 that happened to be on Netflix and were very highly rated, surprisingly, on Rotten Tomatoes. So I checked them out, and they are called Fear Street.
Oh, that's the one in 3 different decades, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
2 different decades and 1 different century. Yeah. These are based on books by R.L. Stine, who was a very popular YA writer back when I started writing in the 90s. He wrote the Goosebumps series as well as Fear Street. This series of movies is directed by the same woman. She did all 3. She did a really good job. I don't really know her from anything else. And they're not based on individual books. They're based on culmination plucked from several different books and put together in an overarching story. And it works. And it works really well. I feel like this is what American Horror Story should have been.
Ooh, okay.
They do hit the tropes and pay homage to past things we're familiar with, but they do it smartly and fun. And even though it's a YA thing, I don't really notice it. I mean, there's a lot of blood, there's drug use, there's no nudity, but there's definitely sex. And these stories are just really smartly done. The first one opens up basically as an homage to Scream, and it's set in 1994, where a woman is being stalked by a killer in a skull mask with a black cape instead of scary face, ghost face.
Okay.
And basically what the whole overall the arc deals with 2 towns, one somewhat good, one somewhat bad, and known as the murder capital of the world because there are always murders there.
Okay.
You find out basically through the most recent 2 generations, the one in the 90s and the one in the 70s, that this has been going on much longer. It's been going on for centuries, and it all comes down to a witch curse back in the 1600s.
Okay.
But they have fun. Like they go into 1978 with the second one, and it's at a camp. It's just called, I can't remember the name of it, Camp something, but it's like Crystal Lake, and it's very Friday the 13th. Even the music is reminiscent of Friday the 13th in places. And you have all these kind of crazy killers coming out of the woodwork, but then you realize, oh, it's all part of the curse. And that's why they've always had them, these murders and stuff. So
So is each of these a 2 hour, like a normal length movie, 90
yes,
minutes?
it is not a series. It's a series of films, and they
But
are
it's a trilogy, basically.
it is, and they're all 2 hours, and they all end. So you don't really have that much of a cliffhanger. But I will tell you that the last movie, which starts in it is mainly in 1666, stops about midway through the movie and cuts back to 1994. So it's almost like 1994 Part 2.
Okay.
Which is cool because it's bringing everything back around to what was going on at the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it's got a great cast. I don't really know that many of them. Familiar faces. I think the girl in that 1978 when she's redheaded, she looked familiar to me. But I don't really, they're all young folks running around getting murdered. So
Well, we had talked about, we had talked, I think, last time about YA and, what defines YA and what is it now and everything else, or what was it when it started? How's it changed? And, we were talking about the tropes of it are it's 12 to 18. So it's all teens.
okay.
It's usually a female heroine rather than a male heroine. So was this both of those tropes?
It was. They were all teens. The unique twist, and it's not a big twist, not in this day and age, but the lead is a lesbian. There's a lesbian relationship at the center of all this. So that's kind of fresh to me anyway. I liked that. Even in the decade they're in, it is about teenagers, even when they go back to the 1600s, because the witch is a teenager when she's accused of witch. And it's that old trope. And they do tread on some of the old tropes. They just don't do it as awkwardly and as often as American Horror Story. American Horror Story is just like a blender that
they just don't.
Yeah, I don't like it. This I thought did it rather well. And
interesting. They said the other category or the other definition of this category was it's usually told with an omniscient perspective. So it's never, even though you may focus on the protagonist, you'll occasionally have chapters that deal with other people that the protagonist has no knowledge of, sort of thing. So it's not a what do they call the perspective of like the protagonist perspective? You know what I mean? It's all from their point of view.
Third person.
Or first person, third person.
Yeah.
This is more, they say this is more omniscient. So like you can spend some time with the villain and find out about the villain or with the other characters in it. And you have their little stories and chapters and yada, yada.
Yeah, they do that. I don't know that they do it that often with the villains, but they do it with other characters and characters that are not necessarily the main character.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I would recommend it. The reason it was on my list of those high-rated movies that are on Rotten Tomatoes, and I was like really kind of shocked that these were, and I can see why now. They're very well filmed, well lit, bright colors. You see the bright colors on just the posters alone.
Right.
So,
and they had good press because I heard about it, even though I haven't watched them at all, but I heard about it and, you mentioned it. So,
well, they went into production as to be films. And during the pandemic, Netflix snatched them up.
Okay.
And so I read the history of this, but it's been a minute, so I can't really remember it. But they were originally going to come out at theaters, and then Netflix grabbed them because of the pandemic.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. You were in horror world. I was in sci-fi world. I finally started season 2 of Picard because, it came out a little while ago and I needed to catch it after I finished my Discovery season 4 horribleness.
How's Guinan?
Guinan was
I knew she was coming back.
She was Guinan in her scene. She was very her. I mean, Whoopi did a great job with it.
That's okay.
It's not, I don't know until I finish the series, but just starting it starts off kind of rocky in my opinion. I can't say a lot because you haven't watched it and you haven't watched
I haven't watched any of them.
Something huge happens at the season finale of season 1.
Okay.
And this one starts out like a year and a half later, and it's like we're are we just whitewashing and ignoring what happened, or are they going to slowly develop again? They developed these. I thought the same thing with season 1 of Picard. It would make a great 4-hour movie, but not an 8-episode season. It's just what they did with it. So everything is stretched out and slowly evolves, and it doesn't work for me.
Are you out in the sun? Because all of a sudden you got shady.
I got shady?
Yeah,
No.
your light went down. There you go. It's back.
Maybe it's when I'm darkening. I don't know. No. But anyway, so not the best so far, but we'll see what happens. I know that they did announce that the 3rd season would be the last. So they shot 2 and 3 last year.
I saw a
back.
commercial, and Patrick Stewart sounded kind of rough.
Yeah. And he does in this too. And I don't know if he's acting, if he changes, if he does. Okay, I'll just spoil it for you and give it away. At the very end of season 1,
somebody dies. Riker, he dies.
No,
Tell me he dies.
Picard dies, and they put him in a synth body. They resurrect him like Data.
Okay.
And so he's an android. And this one starts, and he's an android, but he's an older android who's weaker and has a worse voice. And I went, what? He's immortal. He will never die. So why wouldn't you write to the fact that your lead actor is getting older? He's in his, I guess, 80s. 90s?
Why not just cast a young actor and pretend it's Picard's conscious?
Right. Or something, I don't know. But instead, they're using.
Maybe that's what they were going to do. And Patrick was like, I'll do it. And they were like, oh, fuck, what do we do now?
So they're using Patrick Stewart, but he doesn't seem synthetic, put it that way.
Okay. Oh, wait, no. He just seems old.
He just seems old and frail and weak. And they're obviously, so they filmed 2 and 3 back to back both seasons. And so it'll be interesting to see how they develop it, because Jerry Ryan, Patrick Stewart, Jonathan Frakes, all 3 have said 3 is the last season. There won't be any more Picard after that. And I'm like, yay, good, great. Can we say that about Discovery, please?
Yeah.
But no.
Well, what about that new Kirk series coming out?
But it's not Kirk. It's. I haven't watched it yet. I'm
talking about the one they're going to call Kirk.
No, they're not going to call one Kirk. No, and they're not going to have William Shatner, and they're not. Never mind.
David,
they just
imagine.
William
Shatner back on the screen.
I have said for years, Akiva Goldsman and the rest of the guys that are handing up the new Trek suck.
Yeah.
Where are the Filonis? Where are the
Favreaus?
The Favreaus for Star Trek, please.
Well, I'm judging each Star Wars series one at a time. So
I'm a stickler for good science fiction, and New Trek, not good science fiction, very agendized, as a matter of fact, Discovery seems like we talked, what was it, last week or week before? We talked about the board, the whiteboard with all the ideas. Oh, no, it was on our sister podcast, which, by the way, if you're a Patreon,
we were talking about X-Files and what's scary. What do you think's scary?
Right. Yeah. And, Chris Carter with a big whiteboard saying, okay, guys, in the writer's room, what do you think is scary? Okay. Spiders, write it down.
The Amish,
snot, whatever, just write out everything. I think that on the board in Discovery's writer room, it just has huge topics of inclusion, sensitivity, must be in every scene.
Pronouns.
Everything. It must be
everything that's politically correct right now. They want to, and the thing they don't realize is, I think we in our discussion, I said you do want it, but you don't want to beat people over the head with it. You just want it to seem normal, like it's in the background. If you beat people over the head with it, that's going to make it look more dated in the future.
Goes back to, okay, I'm so glad you said that. It goes back to basic premise from like the world of Star Trek, the book that was written back in the early 70s, all about Roddenberry creating it and everything else. And the studio came to him and said, well, what is this PHA? What is this phaser thing? What is it? Shouldn't you have somebody explain it? And he goes, No. In a detective story, when somebody picks up a gun, do they explain the gun, the 38 to you?
It's
no,
just there.
it's just accepted.
Yeah.
And then they go, well, why do you have a woman on the bridge? Shouldn't you mention that? No, she's just on the bridge. She's part of the crew. That's just, I don't have to make a point of it. Mm-mm. Just make it part of the world and people will slowly come around. Oh, wow.
They'll acclimate to it. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's just bad writing.
Yeah, when you beat people over the head with especially modern topics like what you're saying right now, inclusion and all that stuff. I mean, Star Trek's always been about inclusion.
Always.
It's in the background. It was in the background in the 60s. It was not in the background. In the perspective. Well, it wasn't the perspective. It was part of the vision. Mm-hmm. So that you just accepted it. You didn't beat people over the head with it. They did do it like with one episode. I think there was a racist guy that didn't like Spock. Yeah, well, Corbin might maneuver, and balance of terror when he goes have Spock figure it out because he thinks he's Romulan. He's a Romulan spy, But that's very incidental. This whole new era of Trek, new Trek, I guess they should call it, from Abrams on. Even J.J. Abrams, they made Sulu gay in it and made a big deal in the press to make sure that we have it and say that he's gay. And then George Takei came out and said, Sulu's not gay. I'm gay, the actor is, but Sulu isn't. So I don't know what you're doing. I love George. He's great. He's great. But oh my. Anyway, science fiction. We're on science fiction. We're in a science fiction world. We should probably get on off of this topic. Get on with it. They talk about this every week. Yeah. Sorry. But this is I'm excited about today's episode. For those of you listening, we are going to be covering a little thing called AI, artificial intelligence, and that is the full title, not just AI and not artificial intelligence. It's AI, artificial intelligence. I like the AI. Directed by Steven Spielberg from a huge preparatory time by Stanley Kubrick. It was written originally based on a short story by Brian Aldiss called Super Toys Last All Summer Long. Ian Watson. I like that title better, actually. Yeah. I think it would have been an interesting title, actually, to keep that title. Because trivia-wise, we'll just mention it. Do you know they had trouble with the original title for this because people didn't recognize AI? They thought it was A1 in test audiences. Read that. Yeah, I read that and went, seriously, really? But yeah, that was a trivia really? That they saw A1 and like a steak sauce. So I could see the confusion there, but then again, like I said, well. You can't use a long title like Super Toys or whatever. I can't remember what you said, Super Toy or something. It would be also like Blade Runner being Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. True. And whatever Total Recall is. I can get that. I can remember that for you wholesale. The titles are too long, I think, to market, I guess, for lack of better words. Yeah, although, I mean, AI is not a great title. AI is not a great title. Artificial intelligence might have been a title, but then I think same thing. Surveys said that people thought it was too scientific, that it was it's going to be too dry or whatever. But it's got a cast of Haley Joel Osment, Jude Law, Francis O'Connor. Had you seen this movie before? No, I have never seen this movie before, ever. Okay, so I want to get your take on it then. What did you think after viewing it? I enjoyed it. I like the whole premise of the boy not really being a boy, but wanting to be a boy and wanting to be loved. I have a few issues with it, and they are issues that I always have with Spielberg. There's a lot of what I would call hook-isms in this movie or Goonie-isms in this movie where you're in the story, but then all of a sudden you're thrust into a totally different world. In Hook, it was the world of the Lost Boys. In this, it's the world of the Flesh Carnival where he meets Gigolo Joe and stuff. It's a theme. I know where he's going. It's very Wizard of Oz. It's like, let's take them into a weird place and then somehow get them home. And I understand what he's doing, but just because I understand what he's doing, it bothers me a little bit. Does that make sense?
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, for those of you who haven't watched it, while you're listening to us, as we always say, go watch it, then come back and listen to us. But basically, this is two grand cinema masters making a modern day fairy tale adaptation of Pinocchio.
Oh, I thought you were talking about us.
No,
sorry.
No, but we are. It's their version of Pinocchio, basically set in the future. Well, there's bookends to this. We're not going to do the bookends right now, but the basic story is set in a future where mechas have become so commonplace that now there's an anti-mecha movement happening of people finding their own identity and where is it, and what these are just machines without any form of empathy or anything else. The scientists who make the mechas are struggling with that. There is no empathy or feeling or emotion in their mechas. So they're struggling with that. But one scientist comes up with an idea of making a small mecha boy and having that boy literally imprint, because I think his line was, I want to create a robot that can love, is the premise. And so they pick, much like one of my keys was Ex Machina, they pick somebody from his company who's just had a recent tragedy. Their son has contracted a disease and has had to be frozen until they can find a cure for it. So they convince him to take this test boy out for a ride, sort of thing, and see if he will imprint on mommy. And he does, and just pain and torture ensue from then on. It's all about his journey to become a real boy, just like Pinocchio is the story. Did you find the metaphor too on the nose, too much, too in your face, the Pinocchio story?
The Pinocchio story, no, I didn't, and I don't mind it because I don't, unless I'm just blanking out, I don't recall it having been done before. Do you?
No, not this.
I don't think so.
Not this way. No.
But what I can see is I see that element as being more Spielberg, and the sci-fi more scary elements as being Kubrick. But I read that Spielberg said it's the opposite.
Yes.
So I'm not sure if I believe that, because he also said he didn't direct Poltergeist.
Well, there's that. But I mean, you can see both. What I love about this, and I'll have to admit, the first time I watched this movie, when it first came out, I didn't like it. I was like, I kept thinking to myself, okay, it's too skewed for one thing. It wasn't one point. I was expecting either a Kubrick heavy or a Spielberg heavy, and it doesn't. They do balance it, but it's also long.
It's a very long
I just
long
felt
movie.
like it was really long.
I think it's a little too long, and that's why I could have done a little less with the whole Flesh Carnival.
Yeah, I think that scene could have been trimmed more. I think the prelude before it could have been trimmed a bit. And I also think some of the Gigolo Joe stuff could have been trimmed a bit. I think you could have at least trimmed 20 minutes off of this movie, probably, and made it a little bit closer. I love the whole slow pace at the beginning. The beginning is so Kubrick and so very Kubrick, just the way scenes are totally told through cinema and not storytelling. We know mom's conflict without her saying it. It's just in her performance and the way it's staged and the way it's shot. And I loved all that.
And him hiding in the closet and scaring the crap out of her.
Yeah. But yeah, according to, so production wise, Kubrick actually worked on this story for almost 20 years. He kept putting it off because he said technology, almost like Lucas putting off Star Wars, technology wasn't ready for him to do this. At one point, I even read a thing about, at one point he even said, well, I'll need a robot boy to do this. And everybody was looking at him. He goes, no, I mean, no actor could ever play what I want them to play. So I need a robot boy to do
You
this
mentioned
story.
Lucas. Spielberg did the same thing with Jurassic Park, didn't he? He had
Correct.
to hold off on it as well because of special effects.
And great you said that, because that's what convinced Kubrick to pick up the script again. He kept picking it up, trying extensive storyboards. I mean, like books and books of storyboards for this movie, and different script revisions, everything else. And he kept saying, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it, until he saw Jurassic Park and then went, now we might be able to do what I envision, like the image behind you with separating the face and everything and all of that CGI that wasn't possible before. And people didn't know it at the time a lot, I don't think, but Spielberg and Kubrick were really good friends. They communicated a lot and shared a lot of each other's projects with each other. And Kubrick literally went to Spielberg in the 90s after Jurassic Park and said, I've been working on this for years. I think you should direct it and I should produce it. And Spielberg was like, it's your movie. And he goes, no, you have better sensibilities for what this should be than me.
And that's the Pinocchio part, I think. I think
think about Kubrick, though. He took Stephen King, and who was brilliant at what he had, and did it his way. I think he had his way of telling the Pinocchio story, but thought it's going to be too dark. It's going to be too pessimistic about the future. And maybe I need an optimist director.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
But I think
Spielberg's saying it's the opposite.
Well, his intent was to tell the Pinocchio story even before Spielberg.
Okay.
That was the idea, was, that was already in the script, baked into the script before Spielberg picked it up. Before Spielberg picked it up. So that was always already baked in it. But Spielberg in interviews has said, no, a lot of this, I added this element, and they're really dark elements. Like the whole Gigolo Joe thing, he wasn't a gigolo to begin with. He was like just a servant.
Terminator.
No, he was just like a servant or something very simple.
Okay.
It was Spielberg's idea to make him a sex toy.
Yeah.
And that would be really interesting.
Well, I mean, think about it. I mean, a lot of people, that's the first thing they think of when you say AI is sex robots.
Well, that's how we're going to get them made. I mean, that's already happening now. Seriously, that is, it's kind of like people say, how will we ever get to space again? How will we ever do the moon again? Think of The Expanse. The only way we'll do it is to commercialize it. And so to say, hey, there's gold on the moon.
There's sex robots on the moon.
If we want real thinking mobile robots, they need to be sex dolls, because then they would be popular.
Yeah.
It won't be Teddy's.
Yeah.
It'll be Gigolo Joe's.
Yeah, I honestly didn't have a problem with Gigolo Joe being a sex robot. I thought that was kind of funny.
I liked it.
It's the whole world. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's a lot.
I love Jude Law in the
carnival.
part. I thought he was really good.
I thought so too.
I love the fact that he would switch between, obviously he was so programmed, he would switch to be uber charming and everything, but then also be this really weird, let's go, I'm going over here now.
And would do weird, like isolated body movements like Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
All of his dance,
like, all of his dance moves, or when he cocked his head and the music would start.
Yeah.
So I thought that, but I agree with you. I think the flesh flare but the flesh flare to me was just, I think there was a reason it was that long, was to be disgusting, to make us go, God, what are humans? This is what we really would do. I mean, think about it, especially over the past, few years we've had in America. If you had a way to actually bring back gladiatorial and kill people in front of, yeah, sure, come on. Mm-hmm. It would be that way. But the nanny, oh my God, it just kills me thinking about it. I mean, because although this is about a robot boy and it's a fairy tale, it's a dark fairy tale.
It is. It's a dark fairy tale.
It is a dark, bleak movie. I mean,
yeah, and it doesn't really end that happy.
No, it doesn't end happy at all.
Well, they try to make it happy, but it's not.
No, I've got a thought about about what's really, really sad at the end. But anyway, but yeah, I mean, it's, I guess, it starts with a VO prologue, very, very sci-fi trope of, the world blew up in 1,000, this one is like oceans covered the earth and yada, yada, yada. And then suddenly we go back in time to when robots ruled the earth or whatever. I thought, I'm just looking at my notes saying, what were some big scenes? Did you have scenes or things that hit you? I was floored by when I saw William Hurt. I've forgotten totally that he was in this movie.
Yes. And I mean, spoiler alert for people out there that don't realize we record these things in advance. He died the very same day I watched it. And I was like, oh my God, I couldn't believe I had just watched a movie with him in it and then found out he had died.
And his layering in this is so great for William Hurt and so great for Stanley Kubrick, because it's that kind of, I'm saying this one thing and I'm so convinced that it's the happiest and nicest thing I could ever say, but it's hurting you horribly badly.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm going to get the team together and we'll tell you what lies in store for you next. And you're just going, I don't want that. I don't want that. He's so sensitive and so good at this. Did you like the angle of his David kind of thing?
I liked the whole prologue a lot, with him teaching the class and one of the class members being that robot whose face opens up.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
And I liked the fact that the woman actually, the moral dilemma is actually right there in black and white. And I think that's a Spielbergism to put that in, whereas Kubrick wouldn't. Kubrick would leave it like 2001 and we're just going to have some moral ambiguity here and have to worry. But Spielberg has her actually say, okay, so you're going to program a robot to imprint on the mother and love her, genuinely love her, but will she love him back? Because then what happens to him if she doesn't? And he just totally glosses over it, because to him, that's not a moral ambiguity. It's like, who cares? It's just a machine. We'll destroy it and make another one. And like to her, it's like, are you missing it kind of thing? I mean, I think you're missing the point here. You're condemning that entity, whatever you created here, that mecha, to pain because he won't be loved in return.
Yeah.
And again, I think in the Kubrick script, that probably wasn't there. That was probably there, but it wasn't written out like that.
You don't own it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I liked, as far as scenes, I really, it made me mad, but I like the scenes with when the kid comes back, because he's going to come back. The one that's been cryogenically frozen because of some kind of illness or something. Martin. Yeah. And
Martin is a psychopath.
He's a dick. And all he does is set Joel Osment up to be.
Oh, what a douche. Yeah. I just sort of hated him from the minute he showed up.
Yeah. And I've got it in the picture behind me when he's like getting David to eat all that spinach. And then all of a sudden his gears start fucking up and his face starts melting. I was like, what the hell is going on?
And both the parents are saying, Martin, stop it. You're egging him on. David, stop eating. Martin, stop it. And neither one of them. It's just, oh yeah. I hated Martin. Oh,
and then he gets him to cut the mother's hair at night. So she wakes up and sees him standing there with a pair of scissors while she's asleep.
Yeah.
Like he's going to murder her in her sleep.
Yep.
Yeah. He's a little dick for sure. So I liked all of that stuff. And I really liked, like I said, the ending, when it winds down and it's just him and the aliens and them, bringing peace, I guess, to his little artificial mind.
Okay, curious.
There's just parts in the middle that bother me. And I think a lot of it has to do, maybe it's because I like slow paced movies and I like small movies. And we've had this discussion where they don't work very well these days because people want explosions and bright colors,
Yeah, there were entire sections. I've even got it in my keys of And now this is Spielberg experimenting with Ready Player One before Ready Player One.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
that's what
exactly.
Rouge City reminded me of. I mean, we didn't have to show all that neon and all that stuff and all that crap.
And that's what I may have been saying Flash Carnival, but I meant Rouge City probably because that's what I meant as far as bright colors and lots of things happening. I just lost my train of thought.
Well, I mean, the
I like the smaller story better than the bigger story.
Yeah, I would have liked, I mean, I think you needed the flesh fair because you needed David to see how mechs are treated in the real world. But, you know, because Monica, mommy's last line to him was,
don't go there.
I'm sorry, I didn't have time to tell you about the real world. And that's, you know, that's, so it's just an emotional, scenes. I'm on the sidetrack, but scenes, that goodbye scene,
it's hard,
tears me up. That's harsh.
Yeah,
that's just,
well, it's like somebody leaving a pet out.
Wow.
I mean, except it's a child.
Yeah, but this isn't throw the rock and say go home, Fido, because you'll get run over by a car. I need you to stay. This is like, I mean, when David starts crying and holding on to her, going, no, I'll be good. I'm sorry I couldn't be real. I'm sorry if I'm just like, oh my God, it tears me up.
Well, it helps that they got Joel Osment to do that part because he's an amazing actor.
Why he was not nominated for this movie really upsets me. He should have been nominated for this movie. It is phenomenal acting, really good all the way through. Let me see, and just a question. So, okay, I've got humans are portrayed as the villains throughout most of this, starting with Dad, starting with William Hurt, you know, that sort of thing. I had the goodbye scene is an imprint scene for me, big time. The ending, while we're there, let's just talk about it for a second. Okay. You said the aliens. Did you think they were aliens?
I'm assuming they were. They look like aliens.
And I think that's a Spielberg problem in this movie because they're not. They're mechas. They're super mechas. They're the evolution because there are no organics anymore. He even says at one point, mecha and orga, and he talks about the fact that David is the last remnant of humans because there are no more humans. There are no more humans. Yeah, well, they've evolved. I mean, I do love the Spielbergism. Like the first time you see David is through that really refracted door, and he looks like one of the super mechas at the end. You know, he's long, thin. His shadow looks like a long, thin net, and he's dark and all of that. The first time you see him, and then at the end we meet these super mechas. But I thought the exact same thing when I watched this movie. I thought
they came from another planet.
Yeah, no, they're the evolution of David essentially. They're what he will eventually turn into, or the mechas. Well, what they
he doesn't. He dies,
which is debatable too. Does he die? Really? I mean, at the end, I think so too. But you don't really see that. You say, you know, it has that. He went to that place where you chase your dreams, or whatever that ending line was, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I have a few questions in here to challenge you with. I thought was interesting.
Absolutely, go for it. And I've got I don't really have a lot on cast, but I've got some awards and stuff.
I have questions. Oh, did you notice the music? The music is by John Williams, but it sounds like a Kubrick soundtrack. He even used certain themes and music that Kubrick has used before.
No, I didn't notice that at all.
Yeah. Yeah, like if you'll rewatch the beginning just for the soundtrack of it, it's very, the very beginning of 2000. I mean, not the first Dawn of Man sequence, but the first space sequence of 2001.
Okay.
Yeah, all of that.
Interesting.
And he said it was difficult for him, but he wanted to create Kubrick's, you know, aesthetic of music.
Well, it sounds like Spielberg was kind of doing it as a gift to him anyway, like a gift to a friend.
Do you like the way he shot David is almost kind of scary in that whole opening stuff? The way he would do stuff, like it would just show Monica and you would hear David's voice say, "Mommy, will you die?" and the camera moves and you see behind mommy is David just standing there staring at her. I found those like quasi creepy thing really good. I
loved all that. I thought it was great, but it was also an attestament to his. Is that the right word? A testament?
Yeah.
A testament to
Testament.
his to his acting, where you could see David learning to, how to engage with Monica.
And the break, when she finally does the imprint and he says, mommy, what do those words mean, mommy? And the way he just subtly changes is just amazing and so good. But
the scary stuff is great. I also saw it as him just learning. I mean, because when he's scaring her and stuff, I'm like, why are you doing that? That's not going to work very well. But, he's just learning, how to interact with her.
Well, and it's such a Kubrick line. Instead of saying, mommy, what's death? Or mommy, will I die? It's mommy, will you die? It's just like, but he's asking from a perspective of, I don't want to lose you, but it sounds like,
but kids do that.
Yes.
Kids do that to parents all the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And especially if you have Martin the psychopath as your brother. For sure.
Yeah.
What did you think of Teddy?
I love Teddy.
I do too.
He's like my favorite character. I didn't like him to begin with because I thought he was going to be a bad guy, but then he ends up being a good guy.
I love the design of Teddy because they could have easily made that a cute freaking robot thing like an Ewok, and they didn't. Like Teddy's got like a semi frown to him, and you think, could he be mean? Is he not? What I don't know.
Yeah, at first I thought he was going to be mean. I thought he was going to be like the Martin character. Yes, exactly. And he ends up being David's friend because they have a common bond. They're both, what do you call them? Techs.
Mechas.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love his voice. His voice is very Hal. That was a huge key to me. It was a very Hal voice. Have you seen David? Where is David? I need to find David. Oh, and the first time when, like the spinach scene, when he reaches out and he goes, no, David, you will break. It's just so, I was going, that's Hal. I'm telling you. But, okay. So there's a scene right before, it's after the scissors, it's after the drowning. And you can tell they've not said it, but the parents have made a decision. And she comes in and David is writing the notes. Right. And she picks up the notes and they're all about, I love you, mommy. Mommy, you mean more to me. I want to be a real boy. Da, 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 da. There's a theory I saw online that said that Teddy wrote those notes for David. And I thought that's a cool idea.
Yeah, could have.
And the fact that Teddy protects David all the way through. I mean, he's there to help David.
David's never looking after Teddy. Teddy's always behind, like Winnie the Pooh following Christopher Robin.
Yeah. It treats Teddy. I mean, Teddy's always there. It's not that he doesn't take care of him, but he never smiles at him or loves him or hugs him or anything. But anyway, the thought that that Teddy wrote the notes, I thought that was pretty cool. The other question I had is, I already asked you that. Do you think they really needed the William Hurt has a surrogate son bit? I thought that was maybe too over the top, but that's okay.
No, as a matter of fact, I don't even remember it. So it's
remember,
a throwaway, right?
It pans across all the pictures of him and his son is David. It looks exactly like him. He designed David to be his surrogate son. I
gotcha. Yeah. No, I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah. I agree. I thought it might have been too much over. I loved some of Joe's dialogue, and I think it is very Joe with the big scene after they've gone to. Oh, that's another question. What did you think of Dr. No?
I think it was a little Robin Williams.
Yeah.
I actually really liked it before they got there. I like they're going to go see the wizard. This is the Wizard of Oz.
Yep.
And I thought, what's it going to be? And then it ends up being the movie Big with where it's a fortune teller basically.
I hadn't thought of that, but that's a good key. Yeah. That's really good.
So, but I liked the lead up to it, but the payoff to me wasn't that great. The animation and Robin Williams, I was like, oh, I don't know.
And again, one of those in research, I had thought, because I had always thought, oh, so that's a Spielberg ad, and essentially this is the little DNA animation from Jurassic Park kind of guy. But no, Kubrick had wanted Robin Williams to do it and had already talked to Robin Williams about doing it before Spielberg ever took over.
I know. And I was reading notes in IMDb before I actually watched the film. And I kept saying, oh, this is the first thing they collaborated on since Hook. And I was like waiting to see him in it. And I didn't realize he's just a voice.
Yeah.
I kept thinking he was going to be in it and he's not in it. And there's somebody else too, I think, that's just a voice.
Well, Chris Rock is
he's a comedian.
He's the Mecca that gets shot out of the cannon.
Yeah.
Again, that I could have easily seen that part cut, although it is the next key in the quest for David to get to Manhattan. If there was a different way to do that and do it easier,
or just make it fast and just
right after, after that big scene with Gigolo Joe where he goes, you don't understand, they hate us. They hate us because they made us well, it's a great line, but I'll have to find it, maybe edit it in the podcast. But he says something like, they made us too fast, too perfect, and
too much like them,
too lasting, or something like that. And he ends it with like, so in the end, all that will be left is us. And that's exactly what happens. That's what the super mechas are. And there's almost a threatening kind of feel to Gigolo there. Jude Law did a great job too, I think. He's really good at that role.
Yeah, I had no problem with his role. It was all of the large amount of time they spent in those locations, especially the city part.
Yeah, Rouge City.
City.
And even the lead up to that, we've got to talk to these kids in a car and we've got to show them that they can watch nudie pictures and then they're going to drive us into the big mouths. And I'm like, okay, I could have done without all that. We could have just get to the point kind of thing. Casting wise, I thought the cast for this movie was perfect. I would not have changed one character in this.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have any problems with the cast. I did want to mention before we got into cast, we were talking about Spielberg's collaboration with Kubrick. Did you know what he passed on to do this?
Spielberg?
Yeah.
No.
Harry Potter.
Good. I don't think he would have been a good fit for Harry Potter.
Okay.
I really don't.
All right. Well, he passed on that as well as Jurassic Park 3, which I can't blame him on that one.
Yeah.
But I just thought Harry Potter's a big thing to go past. So,
but giving it to Chris Columbus, I thought was very smart. Columbus set up the world of Potter very well. And I think Spielberg might not have been as invested in it, especially at this point in his career. I mean, this was Spielberg huge at this time, because this was, I think, after Saving Private Ryan, but before Schindler. No, Schindler had already come out. Jurassic had already come out. This was a big.
Yeah, this was 2001. This was right before 9/11.
Isn't that ironic? 2001. Yeah.
Right, because there are scenes of the Twin Towers in this movie that he did not take out specifically because it would have been a little weird.
Well, and because it's also a Kubrick original idea, and then you're doing this. So that's kind of cool.
And then one other thing about Spielberg that I found ironic is that we were talking about his collaboration with Tobe Hooper and Poltergeist and whether or not Spielberg really directed that film. That's always been controversial. Well, here you have him working with Stanley Kubrick, and it's the first writing credit Spielberg gets since Poltergeist.
And the first screenplay since Close Encounters. This is his full screen. He gets screenplay credit alone,
right,
for screenplay, and that's since Close Encounters.
Oh, I thought it was since Poltergeist. That's what I have.
I don't think he wrote Poltergeist.
Well, it says it's his first writing credit since Poltergeist.
Yeah, he co-wrote it, but his first screenplay credit was Close Encounters.
Gotcha. I just found it kind of coincidental. As far as cast, Haley Joel Osment, you can't really beat him. I know he's still acting, but I don't really see him in a lot, and I want to. Is there anything he's done as an adult that I would like?
I just saw him recently. I'm trying to remember. Talk about something else. I'll look it up real quick because I remember watching it. I think it's a Netflix series or something, but I saw him and went, "Oh, okay, that's Haley Joel Osment."
Yeah. He looks like he's kind of a bear. He's a heavy guy with a beard. Anyway, Frances O'Connor played Monica Swinton. I didn't really know her. And I actually do have two other actresses that were considered for that role. One that I think would have been fantastic and one that I'm not sure of. The one I think would have been fantastic is Julianne Moore. I think she would run with that part, man, big time.
But she was great though.
Mm-hmm. She's good. I think Julianne Moore's a stronger actress. So.
Oh yeah.
But then the other one they considered, I don't think would have done as good as Gwyneth Paltrow.
No. She could not have played the intensity of that opening 15 minutes. I don't think at all.
No,
but, not the way.
But I've seen Julianne Moore do it. Often.
Yeah.
So I think she could have handled it. And both of them were big actresses at the time. I don't know whatever happened to Frances O'Connor though. What is she from? What do I know her from? I don't know her from anything.
I thought I knew her from stuff. I looked her up on IMDb and said I haven't seen anything else she's done. She's done a lot of television. In England.
And that the same goes for Henry. Her husband is played by Sam Robards. Well, that's Lauren Bacall and Jason Robards' son, but I've never seen him in anything else. He's just famous because his parents are famous.
Yep.
And I didn't know that Lauren Bacall married Jason Robards after Humphrey Bogart died. And I found out that she did when I found out about this kid or this guy.
Go. Haley Joel he did X-Files in the reboot, the 2018 one.
Oh, I saw that one. It's a comedic episode. Yeah.
Yep, kind of a comedic one. Mm-hmm. He did The Boys. He's in 2 episodes of The Boys.
That's what I saw him in, and I do like him in that.
Yeah, he plays Mesmer, I think was his character.
Yeah, he's like an out of his prime superhero or something. Yeah.
But you should really watch him. And I don't know if you've even seen this series, but it's really good. You like the Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda.
It's Grace and Frankie.
Grace and Frankie. There's my version of Grace and Frankie is called the Kaminsky Method.
I've heard of it.
It's with Douglas.
Michael
Douglas and I forgot his name, but another older guy, but Michael
Danny
Douglas. Alan Arkin. Alan Arkin.
Basically,
2 older guys. Alan Arkin's wife just died, and Kirk Douglas's Michael Douglas is unmarried, but he's a theater instructor. He teaches acting in California, in Los Angeles. And Alan Arkin used to be his agent, and that's how they know each other. But they're just 2 old guys going through what it's like to be old guys, especially old guys in Los Angeles, which is a very young, hip city sort of thing. But I think you would like it. But
and Haley Joel Osment's in that too?
Oh, yeah. He's got like 12, 14 episodes.
Okay, that's good. And that show is always nominated for like awards, so it must be good. What's it on? Probably something I don't get, like HBO.
I think it's a Netflix series. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, I'll check it out if it is.
It's really good. I've watched the first season and a half, and it's really strong. I think you would like it.
Maybe after I finish Ozark. I'm in the dark depths of Ozark.
Oh my God,
that show. That show's great.
It's like the new Breaking Bad.
Honestly, it reminds me more of Sopranos than it does Breaking Bad.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I can see that.
Well, because of the family element. But anyway, back to the movie. We both hate Jake Thomas, who plays Martin.
Oh my gosh.
And he has an adult picture on IMDb, so I assume he's still acting.
He grew up?
Okay, he grew up.
Yeah.
Jude Law is fantastic. He's pretty much good in everything.
Yes,
William Hurt is great in everything he's done,
Yes.
and he is obviously in this.
But what about the Flesh Fair? Who about the guy who owns the Flesh
The guy
Fair?
who owns the Flesh Fair is a little lighter in stature, but it is Brendan Gleeson, one of my absolute favorite actors.
Yep.
Mr. Mercedes and 28 Days Later being two that I would hold highly with him in them. Did you notice that the super nerds consisted of your friend Clark Gregg?
Clark Gregg, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I've always loved him since the Julia Louis-Dreyfus show, The New Adventures of Old Christine.
Oh, yeah.
He plays her ex-husband on that, and that show was fantastic. That show was way ahead of its time.
Got such good comedic timing, but he's also awesome as Phil Coulson.
He's awesome, period. He's got a very Fred Astaire look to him.
Yeah, I can see that.
But he's Marvel's guy now, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers and Iron Man.
Yep.
But I also noticed that two of those super nerds, one is Kevin Sussman, who I've heard of, and the other is Eugene Osment, Allie's dad.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So apparently he was an actor too, and they were cast or Spielberg cast him in this movie.
Okay. Do you watch or did you watch when it was on The Big Bang Theory?
No.
Oh, dude. It's a good comedy. But
I kind of wrote sitcoms off. I can't really do them anymore.
Kevin Sussman is a huge, he's the comic book store owner. He's a huge supporting character in that series.
Okay. I knew the name, and segue aside, I got through about 2/3 of Modern Family, and then I just decided I wasn't going to watch sitcoms anymore. I was just tired of them.
Well, it's interesting. I fell in love with Big Bang since it premiered because it's about nerds and geeks. And I loved that. And I love the fact that they go, Thursdays are Halo night, or, Saturdays, we always play D&D until 4 a.m. and that's what we have to do. And it was just, so I really felt for that series. I think they kind of wrote themselves in a corner because they started giving everybody girlfriends and then eventually giving everybody wives. And then, oh my God, it's kind of jumping the shark kind of thing. But it was like, because it lasted like 10 seasons or something, I think. But it's like after like the 5th or 6th season, somebody wrote this essay or blog or something online. I read it and it was all about, okay, watch Big Bang, turn off the sound, or watch it without a laugh track because they added a laugh track to it, and see just how mean it is. And you start watching and you realize that all the writing is cutting each other down.
It's body language.
Yeah, well, and verbal abuse. I mean, you're just literally cutting each other down and making fun of each other. And I was going, oh, that's kind of caustic, actually, when you think about it.
Right.
So,
I can still go back and appreciate a series like Seinfeld or Friends, but I don't know what it is. Dennis loves sitcoms, and I like Grace and Frankie, but even now, after so many seasons, I'm like, it needs to be over because there's only so much you can do. Yeah,
the formula doesn't work for me very long.
And Modern Family to me went way too long, and I don't know. And Dennis is always trying to get me interested into a sitcom, and I just almost refuse to do it anymore. But he doesn't like watching dramas, so.
Oh, well, there's that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not especially violent ones or scary ones.
Yeah, no, that doesn't. You guys are opposite ends of the spectrum.
Totally opposite. Yeah.
Yeah.
Academy Award nominations. This movie, first of all, this movie was nominated for many things.
Yeah, good.
It didn't win a lot, but it was nominated for a lot. It was nominated for Best Music and Best Effects as far as Academy Awards.
Yep.
It was nominated for Best Special Effects as for a BAFTA as well. I didn't put all of these because I just did our usual suspects because there's too many. You know how many independent awards things there are.
Oh, yeah.
But our friends, so they got no love from the Oscars or the BAFTAs, but our friends over at the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films, the Saturn Awards, it won One, two, three, four, five. Five. It won Best Science Fiction Film, Best Performance by a Young Actor, Best Writing, Best Music, Best Special Effects. So they love it.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because it is a science fiction film. It was also nominated for Best Director and Best Actress. That woman that you mentioned that played Monica, Frances O'Connor. I will say though, it is on that list, people. It is on the list of 100 or 1,001 movies you must see before you die. So you must see this movie all 2 hours and 40 minutes or whatever it is.
Yep.
There you go.
Wow. I think it deserved a lot more than that. I know it when it came out, I think everybody
I kind of wish Kubrick would have been acknowledged a little bit. But
yeah. I think it had the same reaction. A lot of people had the same reaction I did when I first watched it, which is I didn't really like it when I first watched it. I thought, wow, it's really long. And I'm not sure what the story they're trying to tell is. Is it happy, sad? Is it a quest? Whatever. But on second and third watch, you realize it's a pretty dark story all the way through.
And usually that appeals to me.
Yeah. Well, and that's in Kubrick's wheelhouse. It's all the Kubrickisms of evolution of man and where is our perspective and how will we deal with our moral insecurities about ourselves.
Ghost haunting families in hotels.
Even down to, the husband keeps going, he's a toy kind of thing. I did have a couple of little comments on it. Well, I had one trivia thing that I read that I thought was interesting, which is the movie begins with Martin frozen until he's reunited with his mother. And it ends with David frozen until he's reunited with his mother. I thought
Say that again. It begins. Oh yeah, Martin's frozen as in cryogenically. Yeah. Gotcha.
Cryogenically frozen until he's reunited with his mom, and then at the end, David freezes under Manhattan until he's reunited. Right, 2,000 years later.
That is something I have a bit of an issue with. I was going to touch on that before we go on to keys. Is when you were talking about scenes, I love the whole aspect of, there's been global warming and now New York is partially submerged underwater. But why would the people still be working in that building?
I don't know.
It makes no sense. I mean, it was cool that he went there and could look around and see everything. And it might even be cool that just William Hurt is there because he's just lost his mind or something. But there were other people there.
Yeah, I wish they had of either at the beginning during that, second prologue, I call it, but the whole William Hurt scene where he's talking about what I'm going to create. If they had, kind of made more of this is Geppetto's workshop, they're all visiting his private asylum where he, does his genius kind of thing.
Okay.
That would have worked.
Like his Tony Stark tower.
Yeah. Gotcha. That would have worked for me rather than, and I would have bought the ending, but suddenly they go there and then it says a mecha free zone, even though it's where we make the mechas.
Yeah. And do they just take boats to work? I'm like,
and they,
what?
they just sail in every day.
It didn't make any sense at all.
I agree with you on that.
Okay.
I did like the fact
I was losing my mind.
I like the fact that, you, like you said, you do see the two towers and or the tops of them. And you do see the torch of the lady.
It's very, very Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. Yeah. I had that one in there too.
Well, we can move on to that.
I've got here's my two final overall thoughts that I thought were interesting. First of all, I think this movie is incredibly sad, and I've wrote down it's more so and probably much more Kubrick influence when you consider that David could have had a family with Joe. He could have done lots of things if it wasn't if he had never been imprinted on Monica. But he couldn't change his programming, just like a lot of humans can't change their programming. They're set in their ways. And then my big reveal thing was, and I think it's even more sad if you watch this movie from Teddy's point of view, because Teddy wasn't imprinted. He wasn't programmed to love David. He wasn't commanded to love David. He wasn't told to love David, but he does. He chooses to love David and stay with him and save him repeatedly and help him. Yet David, like we said, David doesn't hug him. He only acts worried about him once. That's when he falls out of the balloon. He never thanks Teddy for anything. He never shows any emotion to Teddy. Even at the very end, the last shot is David all happy and asleep, Monica all happy and asleep, and Teddy by himself walks up and then just sits down on the bed and hangs his head. And that's how it ends.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you super mechas need to do something for Teddy because he's all by himself now.
Yeah.
You know, and he even kept Monica's hair for David. I mean, Jesus Christ. It's so sad at the end. The way it's a very Kubrick end with just that long passive shot. And then you slowly see the bottom level go dark. And then slowly the lights go up here and then the lights go on the bed. And that's the end. And you're like, it's going to end there?
Yeah. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I love the whole surprise element of Teddy still having that hair and then being able to bring Monica back. But why do you think, what about the whole we can only do it for 24 hours thing?
It was a gimmick.
It's contrived to me.
And they try to explain it overly so, in my opinion, this whole thing about we're all part of a cosmic essence. And if we're resurrected, we still have to go back because we're already there, essentially. And I went, yeah, that's kind of some existential BS that you just need so that we can have a sad ending. You know,
yeah, I just felt like this is a plot, you know, some plots flow really smoothly. And then some plots have elements that are clunky that are necessary to make it work, but don't feel exactly right. And that to me didn't feel exactly right.
Yeah, no. And I don't think I think it was very clunky to have that big, you know, Ben Kingsley robot sitting there talking to David about everything. Because we already had the conflict and we already had give him what he wants and we already had here's the hair.
I didn't even realize that was Ben Kingsley.
But yeah, Ben Kingsley does his voice.
I think I remember seeing his face in the cast. Yeah.
Yeah, his voice is the prologue and the ending voice of the mechas kind of thing. I just think it's a lot of verbiage there.
Right.
And that's one that even years after I first saw it, I kept saying, okay, that's a Spielberg ending. This kind of Mickey Mouse 2000. And yet that's the one that he keeps coming at and says no. And even what's his name? The other writer, not Aldous, the other story guy, Ian Watson. Ian Watson has gone on line, gone on tape, gone on record. Yeah, gone on record. It's gone on record saying that ending was Kubrick's.
Yeah.
The dialogue was Kubrick's.
Fright.
Yeah.
You just lose your adjectives. They just go out the window. And they're struggling, trying to come up with them.
But he has said that the dialogue was Kubrick's, the situation was Kubrick's, and the story arc was Kubrick's, that ending. And I went, okay, don't know. Maybe it's like Poltergeist. You know, Toby Hooper directed it. Sure, he did.
I did like the well, I keep calling them aliens, but the mecha designs, like I loved how you could see them communicating without hearing them communicate, just by the way he did it and the way they touched each other and stuff. Yeah. It was just really cool the way he did that.
Reach out and touch, and then their face got all of the montage. Yeah, love that.
I always assumed they were aliens. I thought they came to Earth, you know, and they're looking to find out what happened here.
Yeah, I thought. Alien archaeologists. That's what I thought when I first saw it. Yeah.
You know, dead planet. Let's see what happened.
But according to everything I've seen online, no, these are super mechas.
Well, and it would make sense, I guess, for a mecha to sense or find a mecha down there in the water, frozen. Because I mean, why would they go specifically there?
Yeah. Yeah, well,
You know?
I got the impression based on that huge pan, you know, another Kubrick going into the obelisk kind of 2001 reference. When you see the square ship flying through New York and going down the excavation and that they were excavating slowly. Okay. And naturally they would start at Cybertronics or wherever William Hurt's Geppetto's workshop is, and that's how they found David. Was he was underneath there?
Okay.
But well, that's one of my big keys. 2001. Atonal music. The music is very 2001. The classical music, evolution of man, AI in general, and all of Kubrick's kind of existential angst over where's mankind going and all of that. This is kind of Spielberg's take on that, I think. That's a huge key for me.
One of my biggest keys I've already mentioned is the Wizard of Oz. It feels like the Wizard of Oz to me, especially with Teddy and Gigolo Joe. Gigolo Joe even looks like the Tin Woodman.
Oh yeah,
you know. And they go to see Dr. No, who is obviously the wizard that's going to tell them what they need to do. You know, I don't know. It's just, and what do you call that city again? Rose City?
Rouge
City is like Oz. So.
Oh yeah, I definitely got that.
Instead of green and emerald, it's rouge. It's red. It's actually neon pink.
If you don't think they're robots and you think they're aliens, like a lot of people do, the ending is very Close Encounters.
Absolutely.
You know, even down to the semi-design and everything else.
Well, and I think, I don't know if he got hit on that, but I read, I think on IMDb that a lot of people have criticized him or something for doing that, for having that, or maybe it's just that they think it's a Spielbergism that all his aliens look that way.
All of his aliens are tall grays,
skinny.
Another Spielbergism, E.T., which is this I found in production notes. The last like 20 minutes of this movie are all scored by John Williams. Spielberg let him score it first, and then he edited to the score the same way he did the ending of E.T.
I heard that.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because E.T. it works so well. In this one, you don't even notice the music, really. You know, I mean, you don't, there's no thematic. That really
That's what I was going to say. When you asked me if I remember the music, I don't really.
Well, it's because, look back. What's the music in 2001 other than Also Sprach Zarathustra?
It's classical.
You know, it's all either classical like Blue Danube, or it's all atonal, that, ghostly music kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
Same thing with The Shining. What's the music in The Shining? You know,
lots of like
piano, atonal, echoey, you know. So he likes just those mood pieces without themes, whereas Spielberg is much, with John Williams, is much into.
Well, we've had this conversation. He likes to manipulate with it.
Yeah.
I've got that I copped. I did not know this, but he used the set from A Perfect Storm, or The Perfect Storm, for the flooded world of the movie. So that's that. I believe it's a George Clooney movie. It was based on a big book that was big when I worked for Borders.
Yep.
So that's where the water sets came from.
I've got, and this was weird, but when I was started thinking of keys and working out keys, Wall-E, because Wall-E is this robot by himself at the very end of the world. And that's essentially what David is, although he has Teddy, and Wall-E's by himself. But, you know, that kind of thing. And I have one for you, Walking Dead, because the humans in this are the villains. The robots are all good. even the mecha robots are all, even the ones that were just pieces, even the zombie looking weird garbage one with the half eye and all of that. I was going, that's a zombie robot with no jaw or whatever, but he's still nice, going, run, we got to take care of ourselves and all that.
Right.
You know? So
that's funny. And the fact that the world is apocalyptic at the end too. I did not realize this, and I am a literary nerd, but apparently the movies was influenced from a William Butler Yeats poem called The Stolen Child.
Is that where the poem stuff is that Robin Williams says?
Actually it does say the text of the poem appears in the movie in two places, and certain stanzas take on literal meaning as well. For example, till the moon has taken flight. And we have the big balloon that looks like the moon in this. So it says there's also many similarities to a Philip K. Dick short story called Second Variety.
Ooh, I haven't read that one.
Yeah, there you
I need
go.
to put that on my list.
You better.
Okay, Dick.
Yeah, if it wasn't for IMDb, some of these keys I would not know. But I like finding them because I don't want to exclude them just because I don't know them.
I've got another Tim one, Silence of the Lambs, because David never blinks.
Does Hannibal never blink?
Hannibal never blinks.
I didn't realize.
In Silence of the Lambs. He doesn't. The only time he blinks is at the very end when he closes his eyes really slow and goes, "Thank you, Clarice."
He closes his eyes when the classical music's playing.
Yeah, does the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. You had mentioned Hook and Big. I think those are both definites.
I had Big, but I forgot to put Hook in there, and I would put Goonies as well. And
I had one that the more I think about it, I'm going to have to go back and watch it again. But Bicentennial Man, I looked up, and it came out before this movie. It came out in 1999. And that's Robin Williams playing a robot who is looking to be human.
I've never seen that.
It's pretty good. From what I remember, it's pretty good.
Is that like Zemeckis?
I don't think it's Zemeckis. I don't remember, honestly. But I remember it being pretty good. And it came out before this movie, like 2 years before this movie. So I wonder how much influence it had on it. Chris Columbus directed it. I just looked it up.
I figured it was going to be somebody that was like in that Spielberg orbit.
Yep. Yeah. So see, that's kind of interesting.
It's like the whole Goonies Explorers thing. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. You mentioned 2001.
Yeah.
But IMDb mentions it specifically for the scene where he's cramming the spinach in his mouth because Teddy's going, "Stop, Dave. Stop,
yes.
Dave.
I told you, you'll break. You'll break, David." Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious. This is a total geek key. If you're a geek for Stanley Kubrick, as Spielberg is, the light fixture in Professor Hobby's lab was used in the War Room set for Dr. Strangelove.
That makes sense. You're talking about the great big round one above the table. Yeah. I thought that. I was going, that looks just like the lighting from
yeah. So there's that. A lot of fairy tale. I mean, I'm not going to list them all, but I would definitely put Winnie the Pooh in there because there's a strong Winnie the Pooh pull with Teddy.
Oh yeah, even the way Gigolo Joe carries him by like the one arm and his like it's very Winnie the Pooh.
The whole thing, and that's I guess another thing about Spielberg that sometimes I don't like is that his things do turn into those fairy tale type tropes. Yeah. It happens a lot. I was not a fan of Hook at all. Hook really lost me.
Yeah, I didn't like Hook either. That's one of the few that in 1941 are the two Spielbergs I don't.
Oh, they are? Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize. Yeah. And then I have one last key that I know nothing of because I don't follow anime or manga, but apparently it borrows liberally from Osamu Tezuka's 1952 story Astro Boy. And this makes sense because this may have been something that Kubrick saw if it's from 1952. It's where a scientist creates an emotionally capable boy robot to replace his dead son, but becomes frustrated when he realizes the robot will never grow up or become human. I mean, that sounds a lot like this.
Yeah.
He sells Astro Boy to the robot circus, where he is forced to do battle with other robots in a gladiatorial style combat.
Ooh.
It kind of makes you look at Battle Royale and Hunger Games.
Yeah. I'm starting to think, Stanley, what were you thinking here?
Did you rip off some Japanese comic book guy?
Comic book guy?
Yeah. So anyway, that's another one I got from IMDb. I would know nothing of Japanese manga from 1952.
There's a really, really great, and I really like it a lot, BBC series that only lasted 2 seasons called Humans.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
And William Hurt is actually in that as
Okay.
the owner of a synth, an android. And it's really good. So is Gemma Chan. She's the lead in that. The girl from
Yeah, I like her.
Eternals. She's awesome.
Mhm.
I have a very Spielbergism, which I want to go back and check on, but I found it online. It said that Spielberg in many of his movies shows really important elements in rearview mirrors. And in this one, you see David when she says goodbye to him. She drives away, and the last thing she sees of David is him in the rearview mirror.
Okay.
Just like the T-Rex in Jurassic.
Yeah, they're like signature director
Yeah.
signatures.
Yeah.
I come across them all the time on IMDb when I'm doing research, but I don't usually include them because I'm not familiar with them, and we're not really covering just the director. But yeah,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we haven't said yet in this section of keys, but Pinocchio is in there.
Oh yeah, I mean that's just an obvious.
I mean, it's even read in the movie. They
Yeah.
read Pinocchio.
And speaking of which, is he directing that one that is coming up with Tom Hanks?
Where he Tom Hanks plays Geppetto?
Tom Hanks plays Geppetto in a new movie. I'm not sure if it's Spielberg or not, but it's very Disney-esque, I'm sure.
I would no, I would hope not.
No, but it makes me go, oh, is it going to be Hook all over again?
Yeah, because
he does hook up with some boys in Pinocchio too, on an island.
Great. Yeah, good. No, I don't want that.
I don't either. But if that's all you have to say,
yeah, that's all I have to say.
Then I would like to thank everybody for joining us today on this madcap little adventure we had with a boy robot that wanted to become human. Yeah. David and I would also like to thank you for joining us weekly as we discuss these science fiction and horror movies. Next week is a horror movie. Yay. And if you like what you hear here, we also have some bonus material over on Patreon. We have both free content and subscriber content. If you want to give it a test before you decide you want to contribute and help us prolong whatever it is, our activity, keep us alive.
Yes.
Including a Star Trek, the original series, little program that we do, as well as an X-Files program, X-Files Declassified, that we do. Yes. And until next week, and also if you are listening or watching us on YouTube, please subscribe. It does not take much to just hit that little button, but it means so much to us. And until next week, I will be seeing you, my friend.
I will see you, sir.
All right. Take care.
Adieu.
Bye.
Can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.